Welcome to Pod Save America. I'm Dan Pfeiffer.
And I'm Alex Wagner.
John is off this week. On today's show, Graham Platner suspends his campaign against Susan Collins, and now there's a very crowded, very chaotic race to succeed him. The war in Iran appears to be starting back up again, even though Donald Trump is confused about the name of the country he's attacking. That's a real thing. Then former North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper talks to me about the campaign for Senate. Alex, thanks for being here today and replacing John.
It's a pleasure. Although, we all miss John. Whenever he's away, crazy shit happens, Stan.
It's true. He spends his vacations in the middle of online fiascos. That's neither here nor there. Okay. But the other thing I regret, and this is where I really started to get very worried about Graham Platner, was when the story came out in May about him sexting other women while it was that happened so recently that it really brought into question the redemption story that I had naively made. And
then he lied to everybody.
Yeah. He
lied to everybody.
But the thing when I look back on all of that is don't believe a liar is a really, that's not helpful advice, because how do you don't know someone's a liar until you find out later. What I think I should have paid more attention to was that back in March, you and I did a political experts reacting, and that race. This included the first negative ad that Janet Mills launched against Plattner, which had a bunch of women. Reacting to the things that Plattner had posted. And the one that really, and you made this point to me, and it really has been in my head for the last few weeks here, is what he said about minimizing rape and that sort of inherent misogyny should have been a much bigger flag. That is a sign of something else. I wish I'd paid more attention to that in this discussion. And that was separate and apart from some of the other things that he said that were just stupid and offensive. That was dangerous and offensive.
That I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit, but that was the Reddit post where he said people should take some responsibility, not get so fucked up that they end up having sex with someone they don't mean to, which is deeply ironic considering the allegations.
Well, you were right to be skeptical of Graham Platner.
I guess I was skeptical of Graham Platner.
Would you like to take a victory lap?
I do not want to take a victory lap. This is not a good moment first of all, it's not a good moment for Graham Platner. It's not a good moment for the women that he allegedly tormented and assaulted. It's not a good moment for the Democratic Party, because I think we're at a real crossroads here in terms of how the Democratic Party manages candidate recruitment and what it means to answer the toxic masculinity of MAGLAP. I hope out of this, there's a little bit. The thing about Graham, I was not like some sage and saw into the future or anything, but I was always just, the bro glow was a little bit misogyny around it. And I felt like, in the retrospect, and maybe this is just hindsight's 2020 or whatever, but there are a lot of women in a lot of places who were never are really that on board and kind of felt a little bit sheepish saying, I don't know about that guy. He seems kind of like an asshole. And there was a real, and the dickishness may not just be a sort of side effect of ambition, but may be a more complicated and potentially serious character flaw. And as it turns out, I think that's what it was. This is someone who's completely self-absorbed to the point of maybe almost like a certain psychosis based on that exit video. And certainly has some demons he really needs to wrestle.
Risk averse. The people who spent their whole lives deciding what mistakes not to make to avoid cutting off their path to higher office generally are not
living
the best
authentic
leaders.
Lives.
Yes. And I think that makes you a better candidate. It absolutely does. Now, that will blow up in your face a bunch, because those candidates are by definition higher risk. They have higher ceilings and lower floors. And so that's why I was intrigued by Platt.
I think this is different because people are hurting now. I don't think I've seen it like this, because I've been out on my Make Stuff Cost Less tour. People are telling me that there's just too much month at the end of the money for them. Their paychecks just are not keeping up with the cost of living, and they are frustrated, and they recognize that Washington, D.C. is in chaos, that this president and administration promised them that day one, the cost of living would be on top of the list. And not only has it not been, they've actively hurt people's chances in that We've seen these chaotic tariffs add cost to everything. We've seen this war in Iran increase costs. We've seen this one big beautiful bill that ripped health care away from people and given the tax breaks to the billionaires. People are frustrated. And at the end of the day, I think they know that I will be a senator who will put the people first, not the billion have to. I told my children the other day that my parents left me a better country, but that we had work to do to leave them a better country. And I think all of us need to look within us and say, hey, what can I do to make sure that this country is the kind of country we want to leave to our kids and grandkids? And that's why I'm running for the Senate.
You point out affordability is the number one issue in North Carolina. It's the number one issue all around the country. It's frankly the number one issue in our politics for basically since COVID, as inflation went.
This is the worst campaign finance Supreme Court decision since Citizens United. It allows virtually unlimited spending from these joint committees when a candidate and a political party or like the Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee come together, they don't have any limits as they used to have. This puts more power in the hands of the very wealthy, of the billionaires, of the corporations. And I think you're going to see a significant amount of money flowing into races all across the country using this new device. It may affect our race even more than others, being that Whatley has been recently the chair of the Republican National Committee. He knows all the people there. He certainly has been talking about the fact that they're going to use this new tool. We all need to come together and get a grip on campaign finance in this country. We have to find a way to stop this madness. It's too much money in politics. I'll be first in line to find a way to overturn Citizens United. But until then, we cannot unilaterally disarm. This takes power away from small donors. And I hope small donors will stand up and say, we're not going to let this happen. We're going to give these candidates even more. RoyCooper.com is a great place to go and to do that, because we need to have a strong voice for everyday people. And this new decision just allows more money into the system. It leads to more.
You mentioned the attacks on your record on crime. This is in a bunch of their ads. Seems to be their main strategy for trying to defeat you, is to paint you as weak on crime, weak on immigration. They are specifically focusing on some early releases that you granted in your time as governor. What is your response to those attacks? What's the true story here?
Well, first, those stories, there are many lies being told in what they've done, and they've had fact checks that have shown that they just simply are not telling the truth. I'm the only person in this race who's actually prosecuted violent criminals and worked to keep them behind bars, while Michael Whatley has appointed a child sex predator to a prominent position in the North Carolina Republican Party. That's the difference between us on crime. People know my record as Attorney General. They know that as governor, I signed tougher bail laws. They know, too, that I believe in working to prevent crime by investing in early childhood education and in our public schools and in health care and in our communities. I think that's critical. But they believe this is a soft spot. It is not. And I think the people of North Carolina will hear that at the end. We need to get people to trust the federal government again. And right now, people just do corruption. We see open corruption in Washington right now. In fact, my opponent, as I mentioned, owns individual stock. When I ran for governor, I sold all of my individual stock. I have widely held mutual funds. I'm doing that during the campaign. I will do that as a United States Senator, regardless of what the law is, but I will work to pass a law that prohibits members of Congress and high executive officials from trading individual stocks. I'll support a law that stops allowing people to be lobbyists after they serve in Congress. we need to get people to trust the federal government again. And right now, people just don't. So we have to elect people not only who will fight to change laws. We're seeing that we have a lot of people who want to change the laws, but nothing ever happens in Washington on this, but who will set examples. And that's what I want to do when I get there. And the way this money is going to come in I hope it won't affect these elections, because I hope that people will step up and help these candidates. We've got to take back the House. We've got to take back the Senate. We've got to make sure that we come back to the Constitution that the framers intended, where we have true checks and balances, because right now we have leaders in Congress who simply will not stand up to the president. And you need to do that regardless of party. You need to do that, and the branches need to push against each other in order to make this great republic work.
I'll say this for you to make it easier, but the ruling means that the RNC has a lot more money than the DNC. The NRC has more money than the DSCC. The Republicans have more money.
We hear from Kawana, who's struggling to pay for groceries. She's a teacher. We hear from Meredith, whose kid, Vivi's, on Medicaid, and Meredith's scared to death that Washington is going to attack and take away Vivi's health care. Pender's a farmer in rural North Carolina. The tariffs are killing him. We got to roll back these chaotic tariffs, and I think immediately that helps to reduce the cost of living. We got to restore the health care cuts that have really wreaked havoc on people's pocketbooks and people's lives, their health. We've got to make sure that we are investing in education across the board. I believe that when you look at all of the proposals that we have made, like a child care tax credit, because I'm hearing from people about child care going through the roof and they're having to make hard decisions about whether one parent's going to work. We just need a Washington focused on people and not tax breaks for the corporation.
That's our show for today. Thanks to Roy Cooper for coming on. Tommy will be back in the feed on Sunday with a conversation with Gary Lineker, host of The Rest is Football and legendary England striker, to talk about the World Cup and the politics of soccer. Talk to everyone.